This is Production Values, the Art of Amdram podcast, a show all about amateur dramatic and musical productions. In this series, we will follow amateur productions from the initial idea through to show week. We will include previews of upcoming shows, reviews of shows already open, and take you backstage to hear how it all comes together. Episode 9. In this episode, we continue the interview with Pelham Elliott. In the previous episode, we talked about his professional acting work, and in this episode, we discuss his love of amateur dramatics. And we also talk about how he came to adapt the book by Winifred Watson, Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day, for the stage. I hope you enjoy the interview. Well, the other side of the coin for you, Pelham, is obviously your heavy involvement in amateur dramatics, which is where you and I met and came across each other. And when did that start? Has that come from the very beginning? Or?
That definitely would have been the beginning, because that would have been when Mum and Dad did the drama group,
right? Of course,
church and doing stuff for them and with them. So yeah, from childhood, I suppose, from 7 or 8 years old.
I mean, you've done quite a bit of directing. When did that aspect come into it for you?
That's relatively recently. The first thing I directed was Man and Boy in Sudbury at the Key Theatre of Sudbury, and that was probably about 2018. Desperately trying to remember dates. That seems quite recent to me now, and there are probably people going, "That's years ago." It was around that date, something like that. And that's the first time I directed, and I think it's because it was a play I particularly liked. So I then put it forward as at the time, Sudbury Dramatic Society, were the society I did that for. Right. They asked directors to come forward with suggestions for plays, and then the people taking part in, which could be anybody, including obviously the directors putting forward plays, would then read the various plays and then choose which ones for the season to make a balanced season, and then that would be confirmed by their committee. So yeah, I think I came across it. It happened to be the French's, which is now Concord, but the French's book publishers of the plays.
Oh, okay.
I think that they had a sale, and it was on in their
it was
sale.
On sale. I've never thought of doing a play.
That sounds quite interesting. I'll take it's Thomas Rattigan.
Yeah.
And when it was first done, it was not particularly successful because it was at the time of the kitchen sink dramas that were coming out.
Right.
So obviously it didn't really. His play, he was
considered
very
special offer on Terrace Rattigan.
Yes. So I did, and it was the play was actually revived with David Suchet.
Oh right.
In 2010s, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not one I'd ever heard, and I read it, thought, oh, it's really good, and it was at the time, well, still relevant, to be honest, because it features corruption and dodgy financial dealings and corrupt politicians, and
nothing changes.
No, exactly. And it was written in 1950 something, I think. I should really remember having directed it, but it was that period, which is why it wasn't successful when it was first done, because obviously you had the new plays coming in.
Oh, okay.
And all the kitchen sink dramas and things like that, so it wasn't successful. But it was set in 1934. Oh, okay. And it's basically, I don't know, going into too much detail, but it's basically a corrupt, almost gangster type guy with all these business dealings. You find it's all coming to crash.
He's got his fingers into different pies.
He's the man of the title. The boy is his son, who's been estranged from him because of all of this, and he basically is going to use his son as a way of trying to get a business deal through. I mean, I'm not giving it away, because if anybody ever wants to see it, it's well worth seeing or reading again.
Yeah.
And it just resonated, because at the time there was I don't know if you remember, at the time there was a thing where they were seizing, if people had goods, a lot of money suspiciously, and there was a Russian woman, I think, who had like flats near Harrods and this, that, and the other via her husband, and it was basically all seized because they said there was no clear evidence of how they'd got it. Yeah. And I think she was married to some financier of some state in somewhere.
It's all quite dubious.
I mean, that was only in this century, but it's so tied in with the 1930s when it was set.
Same thing was going on.
Yeah.
So from an acting point of view, this is a tricky question probably. What's your favourite role?
Yeah, that's a very tricky question
Yeah.
because I like all of them as I do them. But probably I would say probably two very contrasting, or it could even be three. I'll choose three.
Three.
And you're luckily it's not, 10 or something, but it could easily be quite contrasting ones. So in no particular order, I played Bertie Wooster in Jeeves and Wooster. That again was at Sudbury, and that was only 4 people in the cast. So I just stayed as Bertie Wooster the whole time.
Right.
The others all played various characters of different sex as well. So Jeeves at one stage also played Madeline Allsop, things like this.
Yeah, right, okay.
So it was quite fun. I didn't have the change, but I almost didn't leave stage. I think I left stage for one time only, for like a few seconds.
The rest of the time you were
on? The rest of the time I was on stage, and I had some quite long monologues, humorous monologues, to the audience, which was great fun. And it was just a really energetic, fun play to be part of.
Right.
So that's one. And it's Bertie Wooster, what's not to like, what character.
Yeah.
Total contrast, I played Jack Manningham in Gaslight. So he's the husband who gaslights his wife, which is where the word gaslighting comes from. It comes from that play. A very really horrible, nasty, manipulative character.
Right.
And it was great to play. I mean, genuinely great to play.
The old adage of the bad guys are the most fun.
And I know exactly what they mean. And before that, I played a lot of relatively light comic roles, including in The Rivals and in She Stoops to Conquer, things like that. So lovely roles to play, but to play this really, and to get a character into a really nasty person, so it's not just it's the bad.
Yes, it's got to be subtle, hasn't it?
Yeah, and there's more to it, and all the elements that come into it. And it was playing somebody, gaslighting somebody. Sounds really horrible. Is an amazing thing to do.
Yeah,
because the audience know exactly what you're up to, and you know what you're up to.
Yeah,
but the character you're gaslighting,
your victim doesn't.
The victim doesn't. And I did get at the interval. Apparently, loads of people, and my partner obviously could hear what people were talking. They were all saying, what a nasty piece of work, and what's going to happen. I hope he gets his comeuppance in the second act and everything else. Yeah, that's what you like to hear.
Yeah.
And then, so that's two very contrasting. The other one is I played the title character in Quatermain's Turn. So I played a St. John Quatermain.
Mm-hmm.
Play I'd never heard of before. It was the first one I did for Berry Theatre Workshop. And he is it's set in the 60s in a school for English as a second language.
Right.
And I'd obviously been there, since the year dot. The principal who owned the school, I sort of knew really well, which is why I kept there. But I lost supply, I fall asleep during lectures and things like this. And it's really how almost life has passed me by. Right. And all the other characters. So I'm there to, babysit one of the other characters' children. But when I say, would you like to come to the theatre? There's so-and-so on. They're busy. And it's all that. There's all these, it's quite a sad, lonely character, but really touching as well. It was such a beautiful part to play.
Right.
So I would say three very contrasting roles. Yeah. I mean, probably if you asked me, I could list every single role I've done and say, well, actually, I like that for this reason.
Yes, because yes, it's an unfair question.
It could be here for a very long time.
Favourites, they would be the three.
And because they're such contrasting ones as well, I think that's what I love.
And favourite show to direct?
That is even more difficult.
Sorry.
Manderboy obviously has got a special place because it was the first one. But probably, which I think you might go on to a bit more anyway in a moment, Miss Pettigrew, simply because of how much of me went into that. Yes. So that was, it was a very much my period in terms of it was set in the 30s and choosing all the music and everything else.
Yeah.
All the elements I put into directing to see the whole vision, that was special. So,
right. Well, that's a perfect segue, as they say, into because
what a coincidence.
You've done adaptations, which is something not everybody does. You did Trollope.
Yep, the Borden.
Yeah. and Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. Have I got the title right?
You've got it, yes.
Yeah.
Spot on, well done.
Which I heard about because Rebecca, my eldest daughter, was involved, but I wasn't involved in it directly myself. But you did the actual adaptation for that.
I did, yes.
And more so, it seal of approval by the family of the author, I seem to believe, as well.
That is correct.
Tell us
yes.
a bit more about that.
So Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day is a book that was written in 1938 by an author called Winifred Watson. It was her third, I'll get told off by her son if I get this wrong. I think it was her third book. So she'd written two, and there's a lot of backstory about, that she basically submitted one that she'd written 10 years ago when they were looking for authors, and it was successful. She'd written two very successful books that were sort of romances in the countryside and things like this. And then she wrote a totally different one, which was Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day, which was this dowdy governess who is Pettigrew, the title, who by mistake is sent by an agency, instead of being a governess to children, is sent to this glamorous nightclub singer who is after a maid. And during this 24 hours, more or less, she gets to see the glamorous life. So she meets three boyfriends of this nightclub singer, various kinds. She meets her glamorous friend who runs a beauty salon, and she goes to a cocktail party, and she's never had more than a sherry in her life before, and she ends up finding her own man at the very end.
Oh, okay.
So it's genuinely a really lovely story. I first heard it on the radio being read by Maureen Lipman.
So it wasn't a play; it was
not a
just
play, it
read
was
as
just reading and I thought, oh, this is absolutely fabulous. And I immediately thought, this would work on stage. There must already be a play of it. And I searched and couldn't see anything. Right. I then got the book, read the book in a day, or possibly two, but very quickly anyway. And then I decided, what I will do is I'll adapt it first, and then I'll contact the publishers so that I've got a finished thing to say I've adapted it.
Okay, that was a bit of a leap of faith in some respect.
It's
a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Guarantee.
But so I did that, contacted the publisher, said, oh, I've adapted this, I love it so much. Could you forward my details to the copyright holder? Copyright holder turns out to be Winifred Watson's only son, Keith, who originally wasn't all that keen, to be honest with you. And the reason was because I think he'd had problems in the past. I think there was a company that had rights over the stage thing, and it dragged on and dragged on. It had been made into a film, which I hadn't realised at first, but didn't follow totally the book. It altered.
A much more loose adaptation.
Yeah, and Keith said, when we chatted about this subsequently, that it was fair enough because what works in a book or on a stage isn't necessarily what will work for a Hollywood film. So anyway, so I then said to him, well, I'd love you to at least see what I've done. And I'll understand if you still aren't interested, that's fine. That's your prerogative, no problem. And originally we were going to meet, and then COVID came up. So we got cancelled.
Lovely COVID,
cancelled. And then in the end, I think I sent him the script at the Christmas, and then we finally were able to meet in the following spring, I suppose, whenever the restrictions were lifted. We met in a pub in Bloomsbury, and it was clear he absolutely loved it. He said you're so, you're faithful to it, still kept all the humour and all of this.
Yeah.
And he said he was happy for me to go ahead. The only proviso is that he didn't want it to cost him anything, which was fair enough.
You come out of the blue and then cost him a fortune.
And obviously he wanted a proper agreement in place. And I said, fine, I will pay for your legal side of the agreement.
Yep.
Which again was a slight leap of faith, because obviously at the time I didn't know whether I'd be putting it on or whatever. And that was it. So I say he absolutely loved it, and he said several times during that first meeting how much he really loved it. And he was a lovely guy. It was genuinely a pleasure to have met him and chat to him. So from there I then put it to Well, originally I was going to put it to Subject Matter Society, but in the end I approached Key Theatre Direct and suggested they might like to put it on with me.
Oh, okay.
So it would act in effect as a fundraiser for the Key Theatre. So they would get the money. I would get some of the costs covered because they were doing it. It also meant I would have their technical skill for the box and so on. And it also meant I could choose actors, which is always, as a director, a really nice thing to do if you can select actors. So I could choose people I'd already worked with, including, funnily enough, somebody who was in Gaslight as the maid in Gaslight.
Right. Yeah.
She ended up playing Delicia, the glamorous nightclub.
Right, okay.
And superb she was too. And then I had a couple of other people recommended to me.
Right.
And yeah, went from there really.
I didn't get the chance to see it, and neither have I seen the film. In terms of staging it, is there a lot of locations and scene changes, or is it fairly static?
As originally written, it takes place. A lot of it takes place in the Delicious flat, not Deco flat. Then there's a scene in a house in Grosvenor Square. There's a scene in a nightclub, and then there's scenes in like a taxi and things like this. Okay. I couldn't do lots of scene changes. I couldn't afford to spend a fortune scenery. We had my partner Stuart made an Art Deco 3-piece suite for the stage in white, which looks amazing. And then other than that, we had in effect a black box.
Right.
And for the cocktail scene at the nightclub, basically, there was a table with a cloth on it with all the cocktail drinks, and that was it. Everything else was
dressing and lighting to do.
Did a lot with regard to the costume to make sure the costume looked spot on, and that's where all of that sort of element came into it.
Right.
Delicious flat had things like certain ornaments and magazines of the period, and things like that, just to add little touches. And we had some fake flowers and amazing vases at the side and things like this. So it was all those little elements that came into it, just to add that little bit without doing loads of actual flats having to be moved and everything else. So we had the little Art Deco tables at one stage were in the flat, another time we're covered in a cloth, and they're in, things like this. Just
I mean, it's a lovely theatre, the Quay. I've stage managed at the Quay, but it's got no fly tower, so you don't even have the ability to just fly backings in or anything, do you?
So we had the in effect the flats were screens that just stayed where they were the whole time, and it was just the furniture moving, and there was enough space to get the furniture out of the way behind those flats. We had them further forward, and the cast, certain cast, and your daughter Becky was stage manager, and between us we worked out which cast was moving what when, so that generally speaking it moved.
Yes, I had to press gang the cast into action on relative values as well.
You do sometimes.
Directed.
So, but it was it worked really well. It was extremely popular. I had great fun choosing the musical of the period as well. So although it's not a musical, the West End option was for a musical. That's what
really?
And they'd been, I think they'd paid for the option for about 10 years. It only just started. I think it only ran out by chance when I'd
that was just
come in. So that was
good fortune
lucky.
But
I chose all music of the period, and in certain scenes it made the transitions and so on. And I got lots of compliments because that's one of the things I really am quite fussy about, what music goes into a production. And that definitely added to it as well. It was all these different elements, which I think is why I loved it. And I also acted in it as well, funny enough. I wasn't going to originally, or I was going to have a tiny part as a doorman for 2 seconds, just so I could be in it. But then somebody had to drop out, so I ended up being one of the 3 boyfriends, plus a doorman, taxi driver.
Went from not being in it at all to 3 or 4 parts.
So the idea that I could, that's fine, I'll just be in one little bit and I'll be able to watch the rest of it and enjoy it.
Didn't happen. So I'm sure the answer will be yes if I asked, would you like to stage it again? But have you got any active plans to stage it again?
I would love to stage it again. And funnily enough, Keith, because we still regularly meet Keith and Sandy, his wife, and we've all said we'd love to see it staged again. The slight difficulty is the cost of the legal fees, because it will always have to have a legal agreement, 3-part between the production company, myself as adapter, and then Keith as the estate owner for the Winifred.
Because what about opportunities? It strikes me that it would be a show that other societies around the country, amateur groups, might be interested in.
What I need to do is sit down. I have written to a couple of local ones. It works, or it would work, I think, if it's an amateur company that have got their own theatre. So, for example, one in Leicester.
The Leicester Drama Society was the first one.
It's one of the ones I approached. There's one in Hampshire I know of, and there's a few others that and it's, to be honest, it's time. It's sitting down and getting on and writing to all these people, because I would love to see it on the stage. And there again, all that Keith says, he doesn't want it to cost money, but he would want a legal agreement, because obviously he's got the copyright in the books, and and it's still a very book.
He from what you've said, then he's not interested commercially. He just wants to protect his mother's work.
Exactly. Really. And he said, which would be lovely if somebody in the West End suddenly wanted to do it, that would be a different kettle of fish.
He wouldn't be offended by a big check.
No, it'd be a different kettle of fish for all of us, but I wouldn't be offended by that kind of check either. I mean, what I did with the Key production one is that, in effect, I did a sliding scale of royalties to me, depending on how full the houses were. I mean, more or less got a full house, full performances, and that was an extra money to me. It basically covered the legal costs, which is fine. I wasn't there again. I wasn't expecting to make money, but it was nice that it covered what I did do. And I think that's a lot of I was approached by a company in America to do it. And also I've been approached by a couple of English ones, but each of them, when I've then come and said, yeah, this is lovely, we'd love you to do it, there will be a cost involved, that's when you hear no more.
Okay, yeah.
So clearly, and I can understand that, because all of these groups are having to really watch their budgets the whole time. So if it's a company that don't have their own theatre, for example, they're instantly, before they even start, they're having to think of how much it will cost just for the auditorium, just to stage it in a place,
it's a bigger risk
before anything else starts. But I think it'll be, anywhere it goes, I think it'll be very successful.
I wish I'd seen it. Everybody was raving
that's
about it.
Another reason. I genuinely, there were people and Keith didn't get to see it in the end. Unfortunately, I mean, he would have been able to. Obviously, part of the agreement was he would have comps for every night. But he was aware that when it was done, he had a holiday booked a long, long time ago at Greece, and he just wasn't around.
Oh, what a shame.
So that's another reason why I'd like to, because I'd like him to see.
Yes.
I mean, I presented him with a souvenir copy of the program, of the program and the script itself.
Yeah.
Because that's something else, as well as adapting it. When we did the first read through, I realised it was going to run a lot longer on stage than I thought when I timed it.
Right.
It would have been the equivalent to a Hamlet without cuts, I think.
Okay.
So I then had to do some serious editing to get it down to a sensible length.
But that must be hard, though, to try and not lose the magic of the thing.
Yeah, it's because you realise the bits you've kept, the bits you've adapted are there for a reason, because you love them. In some ways, it helped in a way because of being restricted to what I could do set-wise.
Yeah.
Getting rid of one scene that was set in the bedroom of the flat rather than the sitting room. And still not missing the vital bits, but it meant a lot of where one character is meant to be in the bedroom, and another one is in the sitting room. Originally, I was going to do it so that they were. Most of the action was in the bedroom, but I got it so that it was somebody was talking off stage.
Oh, okay.
To the other person on, and then I cut the whole thing shorter anyway. So in some ways it helped with the staging by cutting it that much, and it still worked genuinely. I mean, it still. You would watch it if you knew the play, knew the book. You'd watch the play, and I don't think you would necessarily realise quite.
Oh well,
that's
a good cut then. Yes, if you weren't, if it didn't scream out at you,
it wouldn't be obvious.
Yeah,
I hope not. Anyway, I mean, obviously, I'm slightly biased because I did the adaptation.
And anything else you got your eye on adapting?
Well, one day I'd love to do. You said I did The Warden.
Yes.
Which I ended up, that was originally going to be a stage version, and there again, COVID
That was
came
COVID,
along.
wasn't it? Yeah.
And we did it in the brief window we could do filming. We actually filmed it.
Did you have to? Was that your bubble? I seem to recall we were at a bubble.
Yes, I can't
the
remember.
cast was your bubble.
And we had to. Obviously, everybody was masked up the whole time. We had to do stints of when they were getting dressed, so they weren't in the same room getting changed.
Yeah.
I say, luckily, it was at the time because there was a brief time when you could do stuff. Because we did it, we filmed it in a little historic house in Lavenham where we lived, and they still had tourists coming in the afternoon. It must have got to a stage where you could do small numbers.
There were periods.
I think they were outside only though. I think. I mean,
not during Eat Out to help out or whatever it was.
I mean, it did mean that sometimes we were doing scenes and then we had to send somebody out to say, would you mind showing them the other bit of the garden away from this window? And they were very amenable, to be fair.
That was good.
So I'd love to do one day the next in that, which would be Barchester Towers.
Right.
Just because I love the Barchester Chronicles.
Yeah.
But that's so different. Other than that, I'm actually in the middle of writing from scratch who've done it set in the 20s.
Oh, okay.
I won't say too much about that because I've got
no spoilers.
I'm about 2.5 scenes into the first act at the moment, so I've got a little way to go. But yeah, nothing specific. I think I'll read Miss Pettigrew. It just literally was just I read it, loved it, and thought, oh, that'd make a play.
Yeah. And
I do sometimes read about that'd make a play, but there's nothing yet.
It just had that spark that made you want to put the commitment in.
Something that fitted.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, thanks very much for your time, Pelham.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Production Values. If you enjoyed it, please rate and share the show. This makes a big difference to how many people get to hear it. If you're involved in a production and would like it to feature on Production Values, please get in touch via email by dropping a message to info@stuarthanna.com. Details are also in the show notes.